Hey y'all, this is part 4 in our job loss survival series. And our topic is finances, reducing expenses. Okay, you know this already. To meet the challenge of a job loss, we're going to have to reduce expenses. Now, we just talked about my saying, the truth will set you free, but it might make you miserable first. This is where it's going to start to come to life. And this is where we're going to have to distinguish between wants on the one hand and needs on the other. Now, your job is to cut expenses to the bone. You may say now, okay, Brother Greg, you gone from preaching to meddling. You may be right, but remember, I'm here to help, right? I'm here to show you the truth, and the truth is going to set you free. You can do this. You can do this. I've had to do it. Millions of other folks had to do it. We're going to have to do it here for you to be a success. All right. So the first thing we need to kind of do is build what I call our house of survival. And our house of survival includes 4 major walls. Number 1, food and medical care. Okay? Food. Now, consider what meals you're going to prepare for the week. Create a grocery list. And don't deviate from it when you go to the grocery store, right? Clip those coupons. No eating out. Don't eat out. Brown bag your lunch wherever you go instead of eating, at McDonald's or Sonic. No $5 coffees from Starbucks or other places. And no Sonic runs. Remember, we got to cut it to the bone. And when you're at the grocery store, just because you're going to the grocery store, yeah, that's good, and you're not eating out, that's good. But don't be tempted to get a bag of Twinkies or donuts or something like that, those impulse purchases. That's why I say, write your list out, go to the store, and check that list off, and don't get anything that's not on that list. Because the store is set up to make you say, woo, that looks good. And then there you go, you get it, and that's $5. Blown. Okay. Next is medical. That's within our food and medical. Medical. Pay the drugstore. If you got high blood pressure pills or something like that you've got to have, you got to have it. And you can't be working out there if you're not feeling good, right? So be sure and pay your drugstore so that you can get your medicines. Also, make whatever arrangements are necessary to pay your doctor for whatever ongoing issues you have. Also, we'll talk about medical insurance in another part in this video. And here's something else. Medical bills can be very difficult. If they're like a hospital bill and you owe bukus, I just wouldn't mess with it at this point because we got to cut it to the bone. You might consider contacting us for bankruptcy if you owe a gob of medical. Okay, that's wall 1, food and medical. We got to take care of our bodies, right? Next is number 2, shelter and utilities. All right, shelter. You know what that is. You got to have a place to stay. You got to have a roof over your head. So you got to pay your rent. Now, if your rent's high or you can find a cheaper place, you might consider doing that because remember, our objective is to cut things to the bone. Now, if you have a mortgage payment, obviously you need to make that mortgage payment. And if it's a really high mortgage payment and you think you might be out of work for some time, you might consider selling it and getting another one. I know that's real difficult and we don't have time to talk about all that, but you need to do whatever is necessary to keep your home going. All right, next is utilities. And utilities, we're going to talk about necessary utilities. We want to pay necessary utilities. So obviously we got to pay for our electricity and our gas so that we can run some AC when it's hot outside. And run the heater when it's cold outside. Just be frugal, right? Water. We got to have water. But we need to make sure and be even frugal with that. Then phone and internet. Now, this is where you can probably cut some stuff. You need to talk to your provider about a cheaper plan and things you can cut. Kill landlines if you have multiple lines. Also, if you have multiple cell numbers, you only need one, right, per person. And your kids don't necessarily need one either, right? I mean, if we're talking about bare bones and we're talking about wants and needs, and we're talking about cutting the bare bones. I know that that's touchy, but we're in survival mode, right? So think about that. Next is cable and satellite. Now, that's under the heading of utilities, but I think that is not, okay? Don't be mad at me, please. I'm sorry, okay? I know this is miserable stuff, but cable and satellite, is that a need or a want? It's a want. It's something you can do without. Get them rabbit ears going. Or, I don't know, watch videos, right? You know, watch your movies you've got recorded or movies you've got on disc or however it is. You can survive without cable and satellite, and that could save you some good money. All right, and remember, every single dollar counts in this. Don't leave anything off the table. Every single dollar counts. All right, so that's your next wall on your house of survival is shelter and utilities. Necessary utilities, though. Keep that in mind. What is necessary? Next is clothing and insurance. All right, we got to have clothes. But in this, the idea of clothing, I think, should be an extremely small expense because I would say don't buy anything unless you absolutely have to, right? I mean, you don't need a brand new shirt or blouse, right? If you need something, check out Goodwill or some other secondhand shops. And you're saying, okay, Greg, you in your white shirt and tie, who are you to tell me this? Well, hey, check this out. My boys have bought me really nice name brand polo type shirts for $1.50. Okay? So, and I have friends who are, I kind of think they're a little cheap, but man, they know how to stretch $1. And at this point, that's what we got to do is stretch every dollar you got. And if you got kids that need clothes or shoes or whatever, check the secondhand shops first. Don't just go to Walmart or Dillard's or wherever and buy, a $50 pair of shoes that's not going to last that long. We got to think kind of outside the box and a little bit, let's say it, outside our comfort zone. It might even be within the misery zone. I'm sorry, but we are trying to cut things to the bare bones here, okay? All right, now health insurance. And this, I know is expensive. But let's think about it. Okay, if your former employer provided your health insurance, you should be covered through something called COBRA, which allows you coverage for 18 months, provided you sign up with your employer within a certain length of time, and you pay the premium. Now, the kicker is the premium's probably going to be higher than what you've been paying through your paycheck because it's going to be the full cost of the insurance. So you need to talk to your HR department to see what that cost would be. And then, if the cost is too high, you could consider being added to your spouse's plan. If your husband or wife is working and they have a plan through their work, you could possibly get on their plan. It may cost very little to do that. Or you may have to go to the marketplace for coverage. I know that's a thorny thing, but if you're driving down the road to your next job interview and you get smacked, or you run in, you just have a wreck and it's nobody's fault, you're going to incur a lot of medical expense. So you need to keep that in mind. So that's the third wall of our house of survival, clothing and insurance. And when I say insurance, that's back up. We need to talk about auto and home insurance. If you got a vehicle on the road, you got to have insurance. That's the only responsible thing to do, responsible for yourself and the folks that you might hit. So also on your house, if you have a mortgage, you need to have homeowners insurance. So plus if you have any valuable things in your rent, you might even need renter's insurance. So if you have that, you need to contact your agent and discuss with him or her about how you can reduce that cost and see that you are taking advantage of all the discounts that might be there for whether it's bundling or maybe reduce some of the coverage if you have to possibly switch into a different company because different companies have different premiums that are required. Okay, That's the wall number 3, clothing and insurance of your house of survival. Next is transportation. All right, of course we got to get around. Now, when I say transportation, here's what we're meaning. Transportation means having the ability to get to church, work, school, the doctor, grocery store, and job interviews. It doesn't mean having a particular type of car, like an Escalade or a four-wheel drive Chevy Z71 super duper redneck Cadillac. And it doesn't necessarily mean one vehicle per driver in the family, right? Remember, our objective is to cut the expenses to the bare bone. If you have multiple vehicles, you should consider selling one to kill out any payment and insurance cost, right? If you could sell it to kill that payment, that's an option, and you should think about that. Also, if you have expensive vehicles, consider trading them in for a more economical vehicle. So if you did have, a really nice vehicle and the payment's high, if you could trade it in on a more cost-effective vehicle like a Nissan Sentra or some other family-oriented car, you should consider doing that so you can get your payments down. Remember, bare bones, we're in survival mode, and that is the 4th wall of our house of survival. So once you establish your house of survival, that's going to give you a feeling of peace and a feeling of confidence going forward. Because if you've got your house of survival together, your basic needs are handled. Now, so after establishing that, we're going to do our best to kill the rest of our expenses, such as credit cards. And if you're going to make payments on it, I would suggest like the minimum payments. And then here's where some of the misery comes back in, and here's where wants and needs come in, right? Luxury payments for toys. Yes, luxury payments for toys. Now, what am I talking about? I'm talking about like the rent-to-own big screen TV. I'm talking about boats, campers, ATVs, motorcycles, unless it's your primary transportation. So what should we do with those things? Well, we should try to sell them and wipe out the unnecessary expense, right? Because you're having to pay a hefty payment on it, and I'm sure you're having to pay for insurance on it, which is not cheap either. So if we can knock those things out, you're going to be more successful in surviving all this stuff, right? And it's not to say that you can't come back when things are better, right, and get these things. So I'm not saying these are bad things. I'm just saying in this situation, when we're trying to survive, big screen TVs, electronics, boats, campers, ATVs, motorcycles, and things like that, they're not necessary, right? They're a want. I want those kind of things too, by the way. They're not a need. So we got to get rid of it. We got to do our best to get rid of those kind of things so that we can survive the situation. All right. So I acknowledge this is not fun, but we're on a mission to survive and reduce your stress, right? Because if we don't have to pay for these things, then there's less stress involved in it. And if you have a choice between paying for the items that make up your house of survival and paying your credit cards or paying for your luxury items, which should you choose to pay? You know the answer. You gotta survive first. And if there's not any money left over to pay for the boat or the big screen, the answer is we can't pay for it, right? But we do need to do what we can to try to get rid of it and kill that payment. Okay. All right, so stay with me, because our next post, we're going to talk about how to increase your income. And again, I know this is tough. I have personally gone through this before. I didn't like it, but when I came out on the other side, I was stronger, and you will be too, and you can make it. You can do this. It is somewhat difficult, yes. It is a challenge, yes. But we're going to show the world what we're made of. And you're a survivor. You are a winner, and you're going to make it through this. I hope you have a blessed day, and stay with us, and I'll see you next time. I'm Greg Niblock, personal injury and bankruptcy attorney. Have a great day.